Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Dave Weigel, politics writer for Semafor, author of the Americana newsletter. Dave, one more day until the end of this campaign. Give us a sense of basically, well, I guess maybe we should start with the Iowa poll, because this is like sort of a big deal. Give us your just give us a broad strokes on what why people are talking about a poll in Iowa.
Well, they're talking about it, Seltzer's poll and Seltzer's poll, because she is very rarely wrong, and because her final poll before the general election, the last couple cycles, has shown something that no one else wanted to admit or didn't quite predict. And so in 2020, her final poll comes out. It shows that there had been movement toward Trump in the Midwest. This is when a lot of other pollsters are coming out and saying Biden is up by 5 or 6 in Wisconsin. So the smart take on that becomes, all right, well, this is clearly wrong, right? No, she was right. And so the polling before that in 2016, Trump and Clinton, Democrats are feeling bad about Iowa, but not like they've lost it. And then she comes out and says, nope, 7 points. Trump's ahead in Iowa. And then he wins Iowa by 9 or 10 points. And so it's possible this is an outlier, but this is the sort of poll that has a good record in the state. It has not made a bunch of mathematical calculations for who it might be missing. And what she found in particular that a lot of Iowa Democrats and Republicans are talking about over the weekend was that women just have broken for Harris in Iowa. This is one of the states where Republicans passed an abortion ban after Dobbs thing. Okay, there is such a movement toward Harris with women, with older women, with women who voted Republican even 2 years ago, that we think that is enough to put the state in play when no campaign has been campaigning there. And if that's true, there's part of southwest Wisconsin that looks a lot like Iowa. And if that broke for Harris, she'd win. There are, I would say, when you get to Pennsylvania, it's been a stretch. But if those sorts of voters in the greater Des Moines area, or those sorts of voters outside Cedar Rapids, there are voters like them in other parts of the industrial Midwest, and that suggests, okay, majority white, like 90% plus white states, or sorry, I should say 80% plus white states, with this pattern. If they go that way, then Harris will win. That was the overinterpretation a lot of people did of Seltzer. I'm not even saying they're wrong. I'm saying if you take her poll and stretch it across the country, it would show such a big gender gap that she wins the Midwest and she wins the presidency.
Can I just expand on that point here, because I was texting Sam over the weekend. I spent my entire weekend on the Seltzer poll. Okay, so like 28-point lead with independent women. 28-point lead with independent women, and I'm hearing on the national level that this is the closest race in in history. I'm so sick of this crap at this point. Like, that is, for me, this is an indication that there are a lot of older women too. She's winning. I wrote this. 65 and older senior women, 63% in Iowa to 28% in this poll. Selzer also got Obama right in 2008, by the way, in that caucus where everyone thought Hillary was going to win because the conventional wisdom was that Iowa's so white that they're not going to pick a black candidate in that caucus. She was correct about that as well. My view here is that the female vote, particularly older women, are being wildly underestimated in this election. Older women, older white women who look at Roe, and maybe they remember when Roe was handed down. They remember potentially before abortion rights were federal law and codified. And they're worried about their daughters and their granddaughters. A 63% to 28% in a white state like Iowa that leans Republican for Harris, I mean, that's earth-shattering. That's a massive, massive number. And Selzer isn't hurting like these other pollsters are. She's going by her methodology. And that's why people are freaking out about this, because it's validating a lot of what people have been saying about this overweighting of the shy Trump voter with some of these national polls.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part of what Seltzer found for Democrats. I keep saying Seltzer just out of habit. Seltzer is that if that is accurate, then a lot of women who are not being reached out to by Harris, like Hillary Clinton, there's not a "I'm with her" campaign. Harris is not emphasizing that she be the first female president, but the chance to elect her, plus the anger at Dobbs, and also the improving. Just all of this is taking place as people are getting slightly less angry about the economy. Not people who post about it, but if you look at the data, our economic confidence has been going up the last couple months. Gas prices are down. I think they're under $3 at unleaded in Iowa right now. That there are more women who are saying, okay, things have turned the corner. I have a couple of issues that are more important to me than this or that thing Trump is mentioning at the last minute. So I'm gonna go for Harris, and that might be happening secretly. And that, look, if that's right, that justifies a lot of what was happening in the last few weeks. There were people criticizing Harris for campaigning with Liz Cheney. There were lots of reasons they were criticizing her, but the calculation there, I was at one of these stops in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The calculation there is, look, there are a lot of women who are never going to vote Democratic on other things. They might vote Republican down ballot in some of these races, but we need to tell them the country's going to be fine. You'll be very proud if you elect Kamala Harris.
Did you, and we should also say there's sort of like similar results, not quite as dramatic, coming out of Kansas as well.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, I'm going to take a wild guess, Dave, that you have not visited Iowa or Kansas in months and months and months and months, if not years. Like, you know, everybody just assumed, like, why would you? So did you, and you know, just, I think there is a sort of a sui generis aspect of Iowa in the sense that there is this really like onerous, horrific 6-week abortion ban, which really is tantamount to an abortion ban. I mean, yes. And that doesn't necessarily exist in other places. I mean, we've seen like what, you know, and I think we probably talked about this. You know, why did New York underperform in 2022? Why did California underperform in 2022? Because there was no abortion ban. There was no question of an abortion ban. So did you, like, this question of older independent women, and also like even in Iowa, though, there's like the men too, like older cohort doesn't seem to be as Trump as you would have, as I would expect, you know, assuming these numbers are, you know, fairly accurate, 3.5%, you know, margin of error, but, and there's not that much, you know, modeling going on. I mean, obviously when you just actually pull, when you break it down into those crosstabs, did you come across this in places like, you know, I know you've been like Waukesha County in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and maybe the Sun Belt states? I mean, did you come across this dynamic? Did it surprise you as you were going out on the road?
Yeah, I encountered it a little bit in conservative suburbs where I'd meet people who did not vote. But the difference was people who were out and took themselves out for the evening to a political event, they mostly had bailed on Trump in 2020, but they'd been Republican before that. I found some of that. I had, and a lot of reporters had the same experience where you'd be looking for somebody with this voter profile, and it was just tough to identify. You know, based on polling, there's a number of, for example, in Arizona, people who are going to vote Democratic for Senate, and they're not sure on president. And it was tough to find those people. And the basic reason,
like, where would you find them? Right? Like,
you
knocking at the doors?
People at random, because people who come out for political events are self-chosen. But the data has shown us that exists. That there are people who are unhappy with a couple things, but separating themselves from the rest of, because what are Trump's best messages? They're immigration and their economy. A few other things he's had to kind of fight to a draw, or he's losing badly. And so places where, in Arizona, for example, Democrats are all running on constructing the border, finishing the border wall where it needs to be finished, and a tougher immigration message than Harris, kind of doing better. So we did see this electorate, all of us covering this electorate was kind of more amenable to Democrats in the last month, but still on the bubble for Harris. And she's still, just because we all remember 2020, she's still just doing worse than Biden in polling practically everywhere. So we need to figure out what is going to change. And yeah, you mentioned the abortion in these states. That's another thing I've been wondering about, is there are states where Democrats are more worried about people caring about this. There's Arizona, where there's a ballot initiative to put abortion rights in the Constitution. And some Republicans say that's helping them because people are turning out for abortion and they're voting Republican down ballot. But all those states, it's still very active. Every 4 years, you might have another election where the president can define what abortion is forever. And Republicans really have been in denial about whether that's going to be powerful. I
mean, abortion's also on the ballot in Montana. I know it's a little bit of a different dynamic because in Iowa, the abortion ban that was extremely restrictive went into effect. So it's a 6-week ban that went into effect, I guess, earlier this year. but Montana having an abortion ballot initiative on the ballot, and seemingly last week MSU Billings had a poll with Tester tied. And I've been saying this guy's a little bit Teflon-y, don't count him out. And here we are. Like, there's a chance in Montana.
Yeah, not completely over. Look, if Trump loses the election, there might be this question about why in the final weekend the campaign spread out to Virginia and New Hampshire when it was clearly not that safe in some of its like targeted states and red states.
That was what I was going to ask you. Like, what is the I have that on my list, but before we get there, early voting. Like, as you look at, we got early voting records, I think, in Georgia and North Carolina, maybe other places as well. How much can be divined from that? Because it does feel like there has been a movement to register as independents. Like, we hear all of this stuff about early voting in terms of Democrats and Republicans, but independents are like becoming a, in some places, at least in terms of like new registering and early voting, as big of a cohort. And it feels like we don't know enough of who these people are, because it seems to me that independents in the past have been largely lean Republican from my perspective. In any conversations I've had, I'm talking maybe, in the first decade of my career, when someone said they're independent, I'm like, I listen to both sides. I listen to both Bill O'Reilly and Brett Baer. That's sort of like the perspective, but it feels like there are now independents who are like, I don't want to be a Democrat. I would never vote for a Republican, but I don't want to identify as a Democrat. What's your sense of that?
That's real, especially in Nevada. So Nevada's a case in a state where if you have seen Democrats lock it in early voting through the cycle, because you say which parties are turning in their ballots, which parties people are registered with, that they're doing worse this year on the R to D comparison than they had in the years where they won. But what happened in 2021, Nevada started using automatic voter registration, which is a progressive reform that does not always help Democrats. And most of the people who are automatically being registered to vote choose independent. They don't choose one of the two parties. And so what Democrats think, the reason they're still pretty confident, I should say, based on yesterday, very confident their winning map would include Nevada. It's because a lot of these independents coming out are Democrats. They looked at them. They don't like Trump. Republicans are I wouldn't say relying on, but they're pushing a lot of the same numbers today. And they are, look at the early voting, look at the absentee voting now compared to 4 years ago. They're clearly doing better. Look at, in some places compared to 2022, they're clearly doing better. The question is, how many people do Democrats have turn out for mail voting early in 2020 that now are just going to vote in person? And they think a lot. That was the case in 2022. Republicans went through the same thing where they thought there was a Democratic collapse. But a lot of their calculation right now is saying that because they want to get this story out there that Democrats have no shot, that we already know Trump's going to win, that it's already over. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't look like it's over election night, it's because it's stolen. A lot of it they're basing it on is, well, look at how big the advantage was going into election day. And Democrats had the same data and say, oh yeah, were we banking more votes in mail compared to Republicans? Yes, we were, one, prioritizing that more, and two, Republicans were telling their voters not to do it. So 4 years of Trump saying, please vote early, and every Republican candidate, I should say, in state party saying, please vote early, turn the mail. They think that is not as good of a bellwether as it used to be. But that is their theory. That is the Democrats' theory, that they know it's coming in, and it's not so MAGA that they're not winning the election. They think that they've modeled this out, that they're going to get over 270 electoral votes anyway.
Let's talk about the get out the vote. There have been, and again, like this year more than any other year in the past, although I think probably I'm informed by 2016. I question whether I'm just, how much aspirational, motivated reasoning I'm doing when I'm reading these things. But it feels like Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk have just run an incredible grift on the Trump campaign. I have experienced being involved in an institution where the top guy is a con man And everybody else down below sort of was like, this is easy pickings. Like there's a quality of like the Howard Schultz dynamic that feels like it's going on where both Trump and Musk are Howard Schultz, and consultants are coming in and going like, oh yeah, man, the way to do this, you got to get votes, you got to spend money. And this is the way that you'd spend this money. Certain percentage goes into my pocket, but that's the way it works. Like, what is your sense of both of the get out the vote operations, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side?
Well, I saw everything I could up close, not for days and days. I respect the reporters who their assignment in a couple of days was going out with people, because you do have to spend a lot of time to see if it's working. But Republicans will admit that Democrats have a better organization inside their parties, that they are not relying on third-party groups. They're relying on the unified campaign. So in every state, this is the presidential campaign plus the state campaign and the candidates, so that they're all knocking on the same doors. They have the same lit. Republicans are relying a lot more on this constellation of groups, even more than last time, because you mentioned TP Action and Charlie Kirk. And I went out with TP Action in Arizona. It's not nothing. They're not paying people to just sit down and fill out forms and not turn them in. But they have a lot of people going to find Republicans who are already probably going to vote and convincing them to please turn out and vote. That matters, but they've not been doing much persuasion. Turning Point Action is less in the persuasion business than the if we just get enough. All this coming from the theory that Trump really won in 2020. If we just get our voters to turn out early and it's not stealable, haha, we win. Whereas Democrats have been doing a lot more, okay, this neighborhood has some people who might be gettable for us. Let's contact that voter a couple times. Let's drop literature about the economy. Let's see if we can move this.
Well, the entire campaign strategy has been that. Get out Republicans. And they haven't moderated their message at all. For a candidate that's already viewed too extreme by the public, Trump has been running anti-trans ads and did that Nazi MSG rally, basically, where a comment circulated that has had ripple effects across the Latino voting population in states where that they actually need. Like them only targeting already existing voters matches perfectly with the campaign strategy as well. They're in a bubble. They really are. Yeah,
this is another thing to hold on to if it turns out Republicans lose the election, is that
believe me, I'm holding on to this.
Yeah, as the monoculture has fallen apart, if you are paying attention to just online conservatives, you often don't know what the heck is going on. If you're a normal, let's say I find somebody who's just been living their normal life and paying their mortgage and says, go pay attention to the right-wing messaging the final week, you're going to wonder what the hell it is, because there was the Madison Square Garden rally, which had a bunch of beyond the Tony Hinchcliffe thing. That was one of several insults he did of minority groups. And this comes from a place for Republicans of saying, well, nothing Trump says ever backfires. But usually campaigns where they're trying to expand their reach, like more Puerto Ricans this year than 2020, you don't say something insulting at the last minute. But then the focus from day to day has been, how do we win a news cycle and fight to a draw in the media narrative, even if it's not connected to anything? You saw it with the way that they fought over Joe Biden's garbage comment, which if you stipulate completely, Biden said Trump supporters are garbage, and then he meant to say it was just the people at the Hinchcliffe people at the rally. Sure. 2 days on that. And one thing you found from groups talking to Latino voters, that Latino voters heard about just from group text, from local news coverage, Univision, etc. They heard about the insult of Puerto Rico as garbage. They didn't hear about this Biden thing, which is been a pattern. Biden just can't make news like he used to, even though he's president. But they thought Trump was making fun of them when he did this garbage truck drive in Green Bay, when he landed in Green Bay and wore the vest to the rally. They didn't think that was, he's defending Trump voters. Also, because that's in Trump media world. I keep saying world or constellation, one of those. Like, there's any insult, any directed at any Trump person at all is going to be the new thing. We're all going to put a costume on of garbage bags now. This is our new identity. And if you are kind of making your mind up, who cares? Like, why? You don't care if he's insulting Trump voters. You're familiar with Donald Trump being insulting. So I don't want to overestimate what every voter is thinking on this, but they've had they just had a really stupid closing week where they focused on stuff that Trump finds important or funny, or that Don Jr. thinks is funny, or influencers think are funny, and they just have been letting Harris close on the same. I have an economic plan, and we're mostly through it, but we're going to lower your prices. Just like day after day, she's been saying the same thing. So when you heard Democrats get more optimistic over the weekend, it was a combination of just the Seltzer poll existing. That was one thing. But it was also, we're closing, and our data shows that people who are waiting until now to make up their minds like her close over whatever the hell Trump is saying.
The garbage thing was amazing to me because to explain what Biden said, you have to reference what Trump said.
Yes.
And that the whole point is you want to stop talking about that. But Biden was talking in reference to, and the stuff about Puerto Rico, seemed to resonate. I think, because the demographics and the perception. But, this guy's out there also saying, black people are, making a watermelon joke, and Jews are cheap and Palestinians throw rocks joke. Like, I mean, this was. Did you run into this out there? Like, I mean, this there was a quality of like, this isn't just Trump. This is the movement is completely built around this in a way that I think, we talk about this every day on this show for the most part, but in a way that like, I feel like the country didn't realize like, oh, wait a second, this is not just, crazy uncle, but he's going to do, but this is like a real movement.
Yeah, that is what they've been trying to do among themselves, is Republicans just arguing that they're the inevitable majority and most of the country agrees with them, and they have made the mainstream media irrelevant. And I don't even disagree with every part of it. I don't think yes, it's true. They can just get stuff through to voters directly that the mainstream media will cover negatively, and it doesn't matter that much, but it matters a little bit. And they also the emphasis is all over the map. There is sort of a closing Trump message on the economy, which is that we're in the new Great Depression. It's already begun, and he can take us out of it by putting tariffs on people. But you really are kind of starved for anything but fun, like rhetoric and jokes and spin if you're for Trump. Even I watched a number of Elon Musk's town halls before I was finishing up my reporting on what he was doing. And it's just not that connected to everyday concerns. It's a lot of people who want to vote for Musk because they want a Mars mission in the next 10 years, which Elon says we would have by now if we listened to him 10 years ago. It's just really, I don't know what to compare it to, because I don't think comparing election to election to election is that helpful when the media environment has changed so much. But I can't remember Democrats closing on such randomness on just things that are not that important to people.
Yeah, it's strange. What let me ask you this about the all this, like the jockeying about the polls and the arguments that the campaigns are making in the end. Like, I feel in a different era, there was a time where, talking about where the polls were at influenced behavior of voters in a way that doesn't today, or in the way that it's meant to. Like, I think it's probable that there were people who felt like Hillary Clinton is a 95% lock. Yeah. And so I'm going to lodge a protest vote, or I'm not going to go out and vote, or I even don't like the idea of it being so lopsided in some way. And I get the sense that, like, the stuff that we're hearing now, it's also largely immaterial. It's nice to know, like, it would be good that, it would be a relief if some of this is true, from my perspective, let's say about Iowa or something like this, but that it's not necessarily influencing the behavior of the electorate in a way that it may have in the past.
No, that definitely happened a little bit in 2016. The sense that Hillary is inevitable, and the Trump campaign worked at from every angle at the time. One thing I remember them doing, which I always remember what gets left out of the storyline once the election is over, is that after the Comey letter, they were insisting that a bunch of people had been asking secretaries of state if they can change their vote which there was no evidence of actually happening, but it sounded real. There were people who said that, oh, they're about to vote for her and now they feel like she might be in trouble, so who knows. And there were just all these different avenues for telling people you can vote for Trump or vote for a third party candidate. It's not going to matter. It's not going to win. That's not the case anymore. Pollsters sometimes ask people who they think will win the election, and there was a shift towards Harris over the summer, and then it's pretty neutral now. The last Wisconsin polling we saw, for example, from Marquette, which is a really good record in the state, was 50-50. People didn't know who was going to win. So in those circumstances, there will not be people saying, I'm assuming a Harris win, I'm going to vote Republican for the down ballot. I'm assuming a Trump win. Just that's not really a factor in this election. And the sense that it is really close and it can go either way. I don't know how many more times people who analyze polls needs to say this, but that's definitely a change, because 2020, even at the end, Trump voters were convinced they were going to win, and most people told the pollsters they thought Trump would win. Even though Biden was up in the polls, there was this bias to thinking, well, Trump's going to win somehow, and Democrats can't turn out because of COVID. Their GOTV is all screwed up. This time, net total 50-50. Nobody in that position is confidently saying I'm going to vote for balanced government.
That's interesting. What the Senate? What did you come across, and did any of your travels take you to places like Montana or
Yeah,
I don't know? Well, obviously you've been in Wisconsin, Nebraska seems to be in play. Like, where else is there potential? I mean, Texas, I guess. Is there any other potential losses for Democrats outside of, let's say, Tester, or I don't know, maybe in Wisconsin? I haven't heard as much in the past couple of weeks about that, but Tammy Baldwin, there was some concern maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago. What's your sense of this?
there is a chance of a big Republican victory. That's if you just move all the polls 3 points toward Republicans, then they would have 55 Senate seats, and that would change a lot of things. It'd be very tough for Democrats to argue in 2026 that we can take the Senate back. If you look where it is, they would struggle to get the Senate majority back for quite a long time. Now, they were down 55 seats after 2004, and they had 60 seats in 2008. But remember, that majority was built out of winning both seats in North Dakota, et cetera. Just a very different map. Red state Democrats were a lot stronger. But what Republicans hope would happen is that everything is underrating them slightly in the Midwest, so that they would win. They'll win Ohio, which they were confident about 2 weeks ago, and now they're like 50-50 on it. That they'd win Pennsylvania and they'd win Wisconsin. Those states would get them to 54 votes. There is optimism that I mentioned Nevada and how they were trying to read the early voting there. Optimism that Nevada or Arizona has been moving in their direction, and there's enough voters who will just going to vote Republican down the ballot that they will beat Jackie Rosen or they'll beat Ruben Gallego. That's how they see the map. You don't from Republicans and from Democrats see the same something wild's going to happen and it's going to shift in our direction. We're going to win. Because I interviewed Dan Osborne fairly early in Nebraska, but I didn't get out there myself. With that race, they're not counting on that. They're not counting on Texas. They're not counting on Florida. Their narrow best case scenario is that Tester holds on and they don't lose the Senate while Harris wins the presidency, because everyone's written off West Virginia. They just know that Jim Justice was going to win there.
Right.
But I hear Republicans speculating more about what would happen if we win 55 seats than I hear Democrats saying, what if we expand the majority? They just don't think, not that they've done anything wrong. I mean, this has been, every cycle is the new super PAC cycle, but this one's insane. This one, you've got in all these races, 10 years ago, Republicans would just pulled up stakes and given up on Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And this time it was, well, what if we spend $100 million more from super PACs in these states? With that money, that has changed everything. The last time these Democrats were on the ballot, it wasn't just a decent midterm year. It was that they did not have this much money coming out and canceling all their small donors.
Interesting. So this is like the Republicans continue to play in fields where in the past they just couldn't afford to, and they would just cut their losses.
That's what happened in 12 and what happened in 18. I maybe over-indexed the Ohio stuff because that's where I spent the end of 2012, and you definitely saw with Brown, Peck kept spending money to beat him there, but he clearly never was behind. He always had separation from moving Obama. He was always on track to win, and that was seen as this insane dumping of resources by super PACs that were unaccountable, and it was like $18 million. Now we're up; it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars that were spent in Ohio, and Democrats matched it. They have their own super PACs, but their response has always been, "We hate this system. Luckily, we have enough billionaires who will fund these super PACs so we can match it." But the entire Republican strategy, their candidate in Ohio, who was personally very wealthy, barely raised anything. He just was counting on outside PACs to run his ads for him. Crypto through the Fair Shake PAC, the completely fake crypto voter movement that they represent, that's going to have spent at least $40 million against Sherrod Brown. And that's more than was spent against him in his last two elections, actually, in 12 or in 18. Because Republicans in 18, they said, well, he's up by a lot. We're going to win everything else down ballot, but can't quite knock him out. And this cycle, they say, oh, well, Miriam Adelson, I should say, the widow, gave us $100 million to just spend some of it there.
What about the House and tie in that notion of Trump campaigning in New Mexico and Virginia? Like what?
And
like,
does he really care that much? Like, or is it just that he can't? I mean, I know your theory, Sam, is like he needs the House if they're going to, like, if he wants to take the election, or if there's going to be investigations against him, right? But I don't want to overstate your theory, but he's also extremely self-interested and has never seemed to care about Republicans' prospects down ballot, though.
Yes, he has campaigned with people, but I mean, where we went in Virginia, for example, is to a district that Republicans are going to win safely anyway. He's not been. It's been sort of under the radar. Even though Trump is doing better than his Senate candidates, the House candidates much more have tried to carve out their own identity, because Republicans are trying to defend a lot of incumbents who won in 22 or won in 20 are trying to hold on, and they've been more separated. Don Bacon, for example, has not been campaigning with J.D. Vance in Nebraska, and that's one pretty early in the night. If Democrats are not beating Don Bacon in Omaha, they're really not having a good election. But their overall thinking there, also close. They were excited by the Iowa poll in particular because it suggests they might win 2 seats in Iowa where they thought they'd win none. They know they're going to lose 3 seats in North Carolina because Republicans redrew the map there to blow out these 3 Democratic seats. One of the guys is running for Attorney General. One's retiring. One's running for something next cycle. He doesn't know yet. So it is going to be, if the polling is accurate in the 2020s for either party, Democrats could get the advantage. We were just talking how there's not a lot of ticket splitting, or I need to strategically vote for this party to keep the other party from getting everything. And also, Democrats locally are running, I wouldn't say moderate races, but they are running on, my opponent wants to keep abortion illegal. My opponent wants to cut taxes and fund Social Security cuts for the rich. They're all running on the basic 2012 Democratic, I wouldn't even say populist, just normal Democratic messaging. But yeah, it'll be, I don't think we'll know if it's close who won the House for probably a week, not because of anything crazy happening in Pennsylvania or those states, but because of California just taking forever to count, Arizona taking an extra week to count. So I would look, if somebody's saying who's going to control the House, there's a couple of seats early in the night, like in South Central, Southeast Pennsylvania, Scott Perry. If Scott Perry is able to hold on there against a very good Democrat, I think you'll have a lot of people saying, "Oh, it looks like Republicans are fine. They probably held the House." And if they're losing any of their far right incumbents who are in swing seats, then that suggests that Democrats are probably able to do that 4 or 5 or 6 places and win the majority.
Where else? I mean, in Pennsylvania, Scott Perry. Who else should we be keeping an eye on in terms of the House?
Yeah, so early in the night again, the Virginia 7th District, where Abigail Spanberger is leaving to run for governor, and Eugene Vindman is the Democrat, and he's the best fundraiser in the country in the House races. He got lucky because the New York Times uncovered his opponent, who's single and unmarried, had very weird campaign ads that were showing him with a random family that's not his.
That's the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy. And so that's one. It's like, okay. Because there were questions about Vindman's military service, and he's not a natural candidate. He's not terrible, but he's not like he got famous during the Ukraine impeachment. He's not like a the kind of Democrat who usually wins in Virginia, where they're rise through the ranks and run for something. If that one is not a Democratic win, because that would come in pretty early. That's got not the closest DC suburbs, but sort of the DC exurbs that have been changing a lot, like Stafford County. Biden was able to win that. Glenn Youngkin won it by 10 points, but it's all in that district. And I'd say Virginia 7 pretty early on. Okay, how is this going for Democrats? New Hampshire's districts, both of them, we don't know exactly why the Trump campaign there. I believe that they probably had some data that says it's within 5 points to send somebody up, and they sent Vance up. But that will tell you there's not that much to win in New England. But I'll tell you if the Biden margins in New England are holding. Same thing with Maine's 2nd district. That is most of Maine. So first district is like Portland and the towns you could drive up to pretty quickly from Boston. The second is most of rural Maine that has gone for Trump in every election, that has an incumbent Democrat who's run ahead of Trump in every election because he got elected in 2018. And that's one. If the polling has in that district has found this Democrat, Jared Golden, who, to the annoyance of some Democrats, has refused to say vote for Harris, that he's winning even though Trump is winning the district. And if that's true, you're going to say, okay, things are holding from 2020. That's pretty good for Democrats. So that's one overall way to look at the election. If you look at some results and they look the same as they did in 2020, well, okay, that's going to be good. That's going to be good for Harris. And no Democrat thinks exactly that'll happen because they think there's going to be a shift in their direction in suburbs and shifts against them with working class voters, mostly compared to last time, mostly non-white voters. And so the first place is like Virginia 7th and Pennsylvania 8. If that's not happening, then they're going to say, all right, that's worrisome. Like it turns out, like the Trump voter who is never polled actually matters, and they came out again, and they've changed the electorate. It's worse than we thought.
Is there a Republican district which has the same function for Republicans? Like if we're losing this one, we're in big trouble.
I'd say Virginia 2nd early in the night. That's kind of the Tidewater region, and Democrats being Democrats just didn't try to gerrymander a bunch of safe seats in Virginia, even though they ran the whole state. They did nonpartisan redistricting. The result is that there's 2 competitive seats in Virginia compared to 0 for much of the country. So the 2nd district, Republicans just really feel they should win that. They actually have been losing ground there as during Youngkin's term. But that's one. That's like Virginia Beach, Norfolk, those sorts of regions. Early in the night, if Republicans are in a fight for that race, I'm focusing on the ones that are in 7 o'clock. I mean, that I'd also say Anna Paulina Luna in Florida. Now, this is somebody who her district. This is the 13th.
Which district is that? The
13th district. So this is like Pinellas County. This was trending Democratic for years. Charlie Crist won it, and then DeSantis really re-gerrymandered Florida after 2021, and they made it more safely Republican. So it's now a Trump seat that covers Clearwater, St. Petersburg, those places. But this is one of those tests. Like Anna Paulina Luna is her entire identity is just being a Trump supporter. She's not been a very productive member of Congress. She's not said how she's going to vote on the abortion measure because it's probably passing her district by 15 points. And so that question, if she is in trouble, what does that say? Now, if polling comes back and Anna Paulina Luna is winning by 10 points, that says they're not losing anywhere. And also, Florida Democrats are pretty lousy. They're not very good at winning stuff. But they have Whitney Fox, a very good Democratic candidate down there. And so, if you're looking at the Paulina Luna district in South Central Florida, if she is not clearly winning, then they're going to be a little bit worried.
That's helpful. That's helpful, Dave.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if there's anything else, but why do you think that? I mean, Trump went to New Mexico and Virginia. What do you have are people scratching their heads about that? He's gone to some places that have been, is it like an
Coachella,
attempt? Yeah. Is it an attempt to make it seem like he's confident, or does he have some type of business meeting and he's trying to sort of do a twofer on the flight? I mean, what is going on with that?
Well, the Coachella and New York Madison Square Garden rallies were partly about donors. At Madison Square Garden, there was a donor box that cost a lot of money, which That'll be fun. If he does end up losing, it'll be fun to check in with people who paid a ton of money to be at the event that hurt Trump in the final stretch.
Right.
Those part of it is the storyline, because again, I'm doing this sort of bloodless. What time will you know the winner analysis? Because I think it still matters. But the premise of the Trump campaign is that he will win the election. If he doesn't win the election, it was stolen. And so anything he can do that says, I've got so much momentum that I'm changing the electorate. There's places that people never thought we could win, and now we're going to win them. He's been obsessed with saying he won California for years. In 2016,
Right.
He said that he basically won it, except it was illegal aliens voting. So that's part of it, is just saying, let's say it's clear at 10 o'clock that the election is not going for Trump because it's very close in Pennsylvania and Michigan, but he's down. They would say, like, how could a candidate getting this much support or in Coachella, like, how could this be happening? The reason I don't think, beyond it not being true, is going to be that successful is because, in 2020, he was running against Joe Biden, who was not building crowds because of COVID and because he couldn't build crowds. In 2016, he was running against Hillary Clinton, who couldn't build crowds. She did the final week because she had big special guests, but he's been running against Harris, who is filling the same arenas that he campaigns in, often with a bigger crowd.
Yep.
And so I don't think it's been, as a narrative builder, I don't think it's been very successful at all. But that's why he's doing it.
Dave Weigel, politics writer at Semafor, author of the Americana newsletter. Where are you going to spend election day eve? Are you traveling around, or you just basically hang out in the office and then watch like the rest of us?
Yeah, this year I'll actually be in the office. The campaign team is, I should say, like the campaign coverage team at Semafor are in a few different places. You got some that are at victory parties. I will be in the office doing calls, and I've got not that special. I mean, I kind of try to publish everything I do as soon as I figure it out. So if you read our coverage, I have my list of which targeted places to watch. But yeah, I'm gonna be in DC as stuff goes down. There's already, as in 2020, there is people like boarding up stuff around the White House. I don't know why I'm not that worried about it. I'm really not about the result of the election, but I think that the vibe in the city is very different than it was 4 years ago.
Interesting. Dave Weigel, always a pleasure. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.